Hello everyone, I'm Atul Dahale and welcome to my YouTube channel. The sixth round of the FIDE Candidates tournament was really exciting, guys. There were two decisive results in this match, or you can say in this round, and we are going to see all the four games in this video. So guys, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. If you are new here, let's get started. The first game which we are going to see today is between Nepo and Duda and Christoph. This is a very amazing battle. With this win, Nepo has just leading the tournament, you can say. The game started with knight of 3. Nepo is white in this game and Duda is playing with the black pieces. Just before we go further, I would like to say that in the opening phase, it felt like, okay, Nepo did not get that much advantage in the opening phase. But then things started to get heating up, you can say, and then he managed to get a very beautiful position in the middle game and he won in a very great fashion. So let's go through it. He played g3 in this situation, bishop g4 and then bishop to g2. Okay, pieces are getting developed. e6 was played, castles. Nepo said like, I'm just going to build one fortress around my king and then I will think what to do in this position. He played knight d7. After knight d7 h3, the bishop is asked a question like where he's going to go. So he plays bishop to h5, then d4 was played. He consolidated the center, you can say, and then knight g f6. All the developing moves are being played here. Then he plays c4 move. Of course, this is like a Catalan kind of structure where white has played c4, d4 and all those moves. c6 was played, and now here comes the decision which I was not actually thinking while looking at the game. It was played c into d5. Then he played e captures d5 and then knight e5. This is a little bit strange decision, you can say, playing the same piece again and again in the opening. Any normal player would have gone for something like knight c3 and then bishop f4 and slow on. But Nepo had some other things in his mind, you can say. He has prepared something in this opening and he goes for knight e5, just putting the knight in the center of the board. And whenever the knight comes in the center of the board, we know this thing that it covers 8 number of squares which are pretty strong. So here Duda thought for a while and then he decided to capture the knight here. Knight captures e5 was played, d captures e5. The knight on f6 is under attack, so it needs to go somewhere. He plays knight e4, centralizing the knight, and Nepo says like, okay, I don't want your knight in the center of the board, I'm going to exchange it. He plays knight d2 in this position. Knight captures knight, bishop captures a knight, and now here he plays bishop c5. The position looks very equalish, but white has slight advantage in the position, that's what I'll say. The problem in black's position is the bishop on h5 square. Now you might ask me why it is like any kind of problem, but the problem is that white will start expanding on the king side, and at that time the bishop on h5 might feel a little bit uncomfortable in the position, and that's what exactly happened in the game. First of all, he played rook c1, getting the rook in the game, queen e7 supporting the bishop on c5, and now he plays king h2. Obviously, this move is a preparatory move. Why is he going to play that move? Means why is he playing this move? Because his idea is to play f4, g4 and push the pawns on the king side. So he doesn't want to come on this kind of diagonal, you can say, where the check is there. So he plays king h2. Here castling was done. After castling, he goes for the king side expansion with g4 move. The bishop needs to move back, and now comes the move f4. The idea is quite clear that he wants to play f5 and trap the bishop. So here Duda had to play h6, and after h6, okay, you can play f5, but he will go back. And another thing is also there. Immediately f5 is not possible because queen will capture the pawn on e5 with a check, and that is not something which will be okay right now. I think queen e5 will not be possible because bishop f4 is a very strong move and he will lose the piece. But still, after bishop h7, the pawn on e5 needs to be protected somehow, and you need to take care of the pawn, maybe with bishop to f4, and then in that case he can go back and attack the pawn on e5 square. So because of this thing, he says like, okay, I'm not going to play pawn to f5 square, I will wait for a while, and he plays queen e1. The idea of queen e1 is to get the queen in the game via g3 square, and maybe he will try to push the pawns h4, h5, or maybe g4, g5 will be there on the cards. Okay, so he plays rook e8, queen comes in the game, queen g3, bishop h7, he goes back, and now he pushes the pawn with h4 move. The idea is quite clear that he wants to expand as much as possible on the king side. Okay, rook a d8. Duda is saying like, I am going to bring all my pieces. Still, I will tell you this thing that the position is still balanced. There is nothing like very wrong in the position, but as you are facing the pawns ahead of your king, you might be intimidated a little bit, and that's what really happened in the game. Also, g5 was played, h captures g5, h captures g5, and after this he played bishop to b4. He's trying to exchange as many pieces as possible, but here Nepo had prepared something. He says like, okay, you want to exchange it, no problem, I'm just going to go against your king, and especially the bishop on h7, which is very awkwardly placed in the position. So he plays f5, queen captures b2, and now here comes a very strong move. The move was e6. Yes, e6 move. The idea of this move is like, of course, like you want to capture here, capture, and then g6 and winning the piece. And if you capture the pawn, the main thing is that you are not going to capture the pawn. Nepo said like, I'm not going to capture the pawn, I am going to play the next move, that is g6. By playing this move, the bishop is trapped. Okay, and after the bishop is trapped, means he got the bishop in this position. King into h7 is a possibility, no doubt about this thing, but he's like, I'm not going to do that thing. King h8 was played, and now he has one piece, and for the piece he has like opponent, means like Duda has 1 2 3 4 5 6 pawns are there, 3 pawns are there, but the pawn on e2 and the pawn on a2, these pawns are weakened, and h7 pawn is also something which might be falling. So it feels like, okay, the position might be equal in this case, and miss equal means, I mean to say like there might be some compensation, but Nepo says like, okay, there is not going to be too much of compensation because I'm going to grab one pawn after another, and that's what he did. He played rook to b1. This queen is under attack. Queen goes back in this position. Queen f6. He captures the pawn. Rook into b7. You can see that the a7 pawn as well as the g7 pawn both are under attack now. He captures this pawn, and now, as I mentioned earlier, the g7 pawn is under attack. Queen as well as the rook both are attacking the pawn. The queen needs to support the pawn. It means that this queen is very important at this position, and this queen is also supporting the pawn on f5 square. So he uses the deflection technique and he plays rook captures f5, simply asking this question to the queen like, where are you going to go? If you capture here, of course this is just a checkmate, which is quite elementary, you can say. And if you don't capture, then what is there? He played queen h6 check in this position, and after king to g1, rook captures a2, rook b f7. The idea is to just give a check in this position at any point. Check here, bishop to f1, and then d4 was played. He says like, okay, I'm not going to give you check in this position, I'm just going to capture the g7 pawn. So he plays rook g5, queen d6 was played. He wants to exchange the queens, but he's like, okay, I'm not going to exchange the queens, I'm just going to keep the queens on the board. He plays queen f2. The idea is quite clear that any point the rook f8 check might be coming. He plays queen a3, still keeping the eye on the f8 square, but now he plays a very simple move, that is rook g3. This kind of moves are not so easy to find out on the board. Okay, there were so many other alternatives by which he could have won the game, but he chooses this option. This queen is under attack. The queen, maybe it can move to b4 square or something, you can say, but then we'll capture this pawn, and then there is checkmate is going to happen very soon. No matter what I just want to show you one example. Let's suppose you play this move. You can just simply give this check, and if this is captured, the pawn will capture into queen. And if you play this move, then also it's going to be checkmate with queen h2. Just a checkmate. Very attacking game played by Nepo, I must say. And now it's time for us to go to the next game. Before we go to the next game, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to channel if you are new here. So the next game which we are going to see is between Radjabov and Rapport. It is some kind of a complete computer preparation, I must say. Like the opening preparation till the middle game was complete computerized, you can say, and the game was interesting. So we'll go through the game and see what happened. Here white side, Radjabov is playing from the white side, Rapport is playing from the black side. The game starts with e4, c5, okay, knight f3, e6, d4, cd4, knight captures d4, knight c6, knight c3. This is the a6 was played, and then he captures here. This is the Sicilian defense and time on variation, you can say. Well, queen to d3, d5. These moves are all common. Everybody must have seen these moves until now. And now here comes a very tricky move. He plays queen g3, not allowing this bishop to be developed. And here black needs to do something in this position. So my question for the players who are new to chess, or you can say like they are just studying the openings, can you find out the move here? You can pause the video and think, what can you play from the black side? Because black played a very tricky move in this position, and I hope that you have thought about it. That move was h5. Yes guys, he plays h5. In many games you must have seen that this kind of moves are not that common. Maybe h6 is a common move, but h5, well, you must be very well prepared. So here his idea is to play h4, so he blocks that thing with h4 move, and now after this he plays d4. The knight is under attack, so knight needs to go somewhere. He plays knight b1. The idea is like knight can be developed via d2 to c4 or maybe to f3, or maybe if this pawn moves forward, knight e4 is also one of the options in the position. He plays knight f6. He immediately goes for the knight. He says like I'm not going to settle down there, and knight e4, the queen is under attack, so queen moves to f3 square. Now the knight needs to be protected. He plays queen to d5, and now he again attacks the knight with bishop d3. White is developing the pieces one after another, and black needs to do something in this situation. He plays bishop b4 check, asking some questions to the white's king. White king says like, okay, you are giving me check, I'm going to play king f1, just stepping aside, because देखो, in this position the rook is there on this file. You can say it can be used anytime on this file h or g file, so king might be safe on g1 square. So he plays king f1. f5 was played. He captures, f6, and then knight moves back, and now bishop to g6 check. Both the sides after this, you can say they are not going for the castling. He plays king d7. What on earth is going on in this position? And just to let you know, you might be surprised, but this position is actually still equal, and both the sides are playing almost all the computer's best choices until this point. And it is very interesting, like to play for the human being in this manner, like to know the preparation, to know what your opponent is going to do and prepare for this is simply awesome. These top players are just awesome. Their memory, their preparation is hats off. So here Radjabov played bishop to g5, putting some pressure on the f6 knight, and of course like you can always capture this queen, but maybe he doesn't want to capture the queen at this point. He wants to be there on the board, so he plays rook f8, just supporting the knight on f6 square. He plays c3, attacking the bishop, and now bishop moves back to this position, and then c captures d4, queen captures d4, and Radjabov says like I want to exchange the queens because the pawn on b2 was also under attack. He plays queen c3. Well, you can give a check. That's what happened. And finally, in this position, as Radjabov was trying to exchange the queens since long time, Rapport said like, okay, I will exchange the queens and be happy, okay. So rook b8 was played. Pawn on b2 is under attack, but he said like, okay, if you want to capture my pawn, capture it, no issues. I'm going to activate my pieces. See, this is something which is very important while playing the game. Whenever it's possible for you, try to activate your pieces as quickly as possible, especially when you are lacking in development. Here white is lacking in development. The knight on b1, the rook on a1, the rook on h1, they are not in the game. And okay, bishop g6 and bishop g5 are there, but they're not actually doing that much great job in the position. So activity is the most important factor in this position. So he goes for knight d2, rook captures on b2, and then he plays knight c4. The knight is attacking the bishop as well as the rook on d6 and b2. He plays bishop b4 check. The king goes in the corner as usual. Knight g4. The pawn on f2 is under attack. What to do in this position? It looks very scary. This rook is attacking. This rook is attacking. Knight is also attacking. Well, but you can always have some easier solutions to your problems. The f3 move has been played. Rook f2 check. King rook to f2 check, and then he plays king g1. Bishop to c5. Again, there are certain threats in this position. Discovered attack is going to happen. Rook a2, rook a1, and so many things are happening. What to do in this position? Okay, here Radjabov says like, even if discovered checks and all those things are happening, I have something in this position which you cannot really miss. That is the checks, captures, and threats. Guys, whenever you are under pressure or something, always pay attention to the captures in the position, the checks in the position. That will really help you to get the solution. So here Radjabov goes with f captures g4, and of course like this knight was supporting this or controlling this h2 square, and if you go for rook into a2, no issues. We can play king to h2, and the rook on a1 is still protected, so no worries for that thing. So he plays rook f4 check. The knight on c4 is under attack, and after knight e3, this was a very interesting move. Okay, you could have played king h2 in this position and rook into c4. That was a possibility, but he says like, no, I'm not going to do that thing. I'll play knight e3, bishop captures e3, and then he plays king h2. king h4. The point is the rook is not able to go anywhere by which it can support the bishop, so mass exchanges are going to happen, and he plays rook into g4, bishop captures e3, and then rook captures g6, and this position is just equal because the opposite color bishops are there, two rooks are there. Although the pawns are a little bit less from the white side, but the activity of the pieces is something which is very important. He plays rook d1 check, king c7, rook a b1. These two rooks are kind of pillars in the position. They are stopping black's king from coming in the position, and this bishop is also controlling all the important dark squares. So harmony is very important when you are playing the game. He plays bishop b7 and then bishop to c5, rook e8, and now he plays bishop d6 check, king c8, bishop e5. Black is 2 pawns up, but white is holding on to the position because of the opposite color bishops. He is not allowing the pawns to move forward, and rook g4 was played, rook f1. Again he said like, okay, if you want to capture my pawn on h4, you can capture it, no issues. The third pawn is gone, but the thing is that now he is going to activate the rook on the f7 square, which he cannot really stop it, because if you play rook e7, rook f8 check is going to come, and if king d7, the rook will be capturing the bishop on b7 square. So that's out of question. He plays rook e4, attacking the bishop on e5 square, but Radjabov had already prepared rook f7. He's like, if you want to capture it, no issues. I will capture this bishop, and check, 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 check. The draw is going to happen. Rook b5 was played, and a simple draw is going to be there. Check, here, check, and check, check, check. All these checks are there, and it is going to be a perpetual checks, and it's a draw. Very sharp game, I must say. The pawn down, scary for normal people like us, you can say, but the players who are participating candidates, they are well prepared, they know the stuff, and that's why this game was sharp, but ended in a draw. Okay, now we are going to go to the next game. People's favorite Nakamura against Liren. Well, this game is, what to say, this is a very interesting game, and I was going through this game and I really love the way it was played. In this game also sharp tactics were there, and I hope that you will enjoy this game. Guys, moving forward, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to channel. Let's move further. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop knight to f6, d3, bishop c5. This is the Joko piano opening. c3 was played, and then d6. Castles, everything is going equal. Rook to e1, a5 has been played. There are many plans in this position. a6, a5, h6. All these moves has been played by many top players, and they always keep changing the move orders and everything. Here, of course, bishop g4 is one of the ideas. He plays h3, and then he plays h6. You might be thinking, what on earth is going to happen here? What they are doing? Well, they are just waiting strategy. This is called as the waiting strategy. They're waiting for their opponent's planning, and that's why this kind of h6, h3, a5 is a very useful move, because whenever you play b4, that is actually stopped, and bishop is also having some squares on b6 as well as a7. He plays knight to d2. The idea of knight d2 is usually to go for knight f1, knight e3, knight g3, or even bishop g3. This kind of ideas are there, but we'll see what exactly happened in the game. Bishop e6, the bishop is trying to exchange this bishop, but Nakamura says to Liren that, okay, I'm not going to exchange the bishop just like that. I'm going to play bishop to b5, attacking this knight on c6 square. And in this position, Liren played a move which is, well, what to say, that move is not that common for like players of our level, or you can say normal people, because you need to understand the position to play the next move. So I will ask you to pause the video and think about the position, like what you can play in this situation. Okay, until you think, I will take a little bit sip of the water, and then we will continue. Just wait. Okay, I hope that you have thought about the position, and the move is queen b8. Well, why is he going to do that thing? Like, well, his idea is to play queen a7 and put pressure on f2 pawn. Here Nakamura says like, okay, no problem, I'm going to capture your knight here and double the pawns, but I'm going to get the d4 move. By playing this move, Okay, Nakamura got 2 pawns in the center of the board. Bishop needs to move back, and now he plays a4. He's trying to get this bishop completely blocked in the position, and of course Liren understood his position. He knows what he is doing. He says like, no issues, I'm not going to get checkmated, means this bishop is not going to get checkmated there. Rook e8 was played, and now he plays rook a3. The idea is very interesting that he wants to bring the rook on the other side of the board. This kind of ideas are called as the rook lift. Okay, rook lift is very important in the game, and we should always pay attention. He plays queen a7, as usual, putting some pressure on this diagonal, discouraging white from playing e5 kind of moves, because if you capture the pawn on f2 will be hanging. Okay, you can capture knight into e5, but then bishop will be capturing the d4 pawn. So all those ideas are a little bit discouraged in this position. He plays knight f1. His idea was like that only. When he played knight d2, he wants to move the knight to the other side of the board. Here black plays d5. He's saying like, okay, Ding is saying like, I'm going to consolidate this weakness on d4 square. I'm going to constantly put pressure on that square. He plays e4. Knight is under attack. Knight goes to the e4 square, which is a centralized square. Knight 1 d2. Again, he wants to exchange the knight. And here Liren says like, I'm not going to exchange the knight. Just like that, I'm going to play bishop to f5. He plays rook e2, which is supporting the pawn on f2 square whenever it is needed. It was not needed right now, but you should always be prepared for everything. Rook a d8 was played in this position. Knight goes to b3 square. Maybe the knight is dreaming to go for the c5 square, and it is also supporting the pawn on d4 square. Well, I did not like knight b3 that much, because this was kind of blocking the rook's path. I don't know what you think, but personally speaking, I did not like it that much. So here black plays c5, d captures c5, and then bishop captures c5, knight captures c5, queen captures c5. The position has you can say simplified a little bit. The bishop, which was a little bit bad, is now exchanged, and that was also one of the ideas. Like here he knew that the pawn will be on c6 square and c5 will be played. For that he will be needing his queen. So all these moves which were played were the part of the preparation, you can guys. He prepared for it. He knew what he's going to do. So that's what something which we need to pay attention while playing the game. We need to have a plan of action. If you have a plan of action, then it will be very easy for you to play in the game. Otherwise, you will be just wandering around, not knowing what to do in the position, which happens to many people when they don't know exactly what to do after the initial 10 or 15 moves. So for that, I will tell you that study the games of your opening. Don't just look at the first 10 or 15 moves. Always check out the games, what is there, what players have played, and this kind of ideas of playing queen b8, queen a7 will be there in your mind, and it will help you to play well in your games. Well, he centralizes the knight here in this position, knight d4. The bishop is under attack, so bishop moves to d7 square. One thing I would like to tell you, that opposite color bishops are there on the board. Okay, and whenever the opposite color bishops are there on the board, the chances of drawing the game are quite high. And well, that is not true all the time. I'm just telling you, the chances are quite high, because if everything is exchanged and only two bishops are left on the board, means opposite color bishops, and the pawns are there, then of course like they will not be able to capture each other's pawns, and the game might be ending in a draw. So let's continue here. Bishop f4 was played in this situation. Queen e7, knight b5 was played. Bishop captures b5, a captures b5, and he plays knight g5. Well, by playing like this, he's saying like, okay, the pawn on a5 was anyhow hanging, you can capture that pawn, but I'm going for something more interesting. Knight e6, the bishop on f4 is under attack. He goes behind in this situation. Although white is having one extra pawn, but the pawns are doubled on the b file, so it's not exactly a clear winning position, or you can say a better position for white. It is not like that. Black still has some kind of chances. He moves forward with his only a passed pawn, you can say. The d pawn is the passed pawn, and as they say, like Karpo used to say, whenever you have a passed pawn, you should try to push the pawn. Just push karo, khush raho. Okay, rook a3. Again, he is trying to come up on this side of the board. He plays queen c5. The pawn on b5 is under attack, but he said like, I'm not going to save that pawn. I'm going to go for your king. Bishop into h6 is one of the ideas in the position. He plays d3, attacking the rook on e2 square. Rook needs to move back, and now he captures the pawn on b5. As I said, like there is a pin, and bishop into h6 is a possibility in this position, but if you go for bishop into h6 in this situation, that will not be a very wise idea, because d2 is a very strong idea. because they go like in this position the g7 pawn is kind of protected in this position because of the knight on e6 square, and you don't need to worry about anything. The rook is under attack and rook needs to move somewhere. Let's suppose you play this move, queen captures on e5, the pawn on g7 is still protected, the b2 pawn is under attack, and if the pawn also starts marching forward, I think this will be clear better position for black. So he needs to hold his to play bishop into h6. He plays queen h5 first, bringing the queen in the game, and after queen to h5, queen into b2 was played, and finally he captures on h6. Now d2 is not that powerful. It was played in the game also because rook d1 and it stops everything. I know that this pawn might be going forward and something will be happening. You can capture queen into e5 in this position, but that is not exactly possible because the queen on h5 is supporting the pawn. So his idea was to play rook d5 and attack the pawn on e5 square, and here he says like, okay, you are going to capture everything and the pawn might be queening forward, so I need to do something drastic in the position. I need to find out a way to neutralize. So that's why he found out a very nice idea, that was bishop into g7. He says like knight into g7, no worries, in this position he's not going to play queen h6, he's going to go for the direct perpetual check, and that will happen after rook captures g7, king captures g7, and then queen g5 check. There is no way that he can stop the checks, you can say. This check was given, and even if you play, let's suppose, king e7 in this position, we can still give this check. King will come here on d7 square. Can you find out a way? I hope that you will find out. Queen f7 is a check, and if you play king d8, then the queen will be capturing on d5. If you play king c8, then e8 will be captured, king c7, again e8 will be captured, and it should lead to a draw. So that's why in this position he just went out to play like this, and the game was over in a draw. Quite interesting and very like sharp movements at some point of the time. And now it's time for our last game of this sixth round. That was between Alireza Firoujza, the youngest 2800 player, against Fabiano Caruana. The game was what to say, we will see what is going to happen for this game. Guys, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to channel. We are going to see this game from Caruana side. Caruana is black in this position. Alireza started with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, g3, d5, bishop g2. Catalan opening has been played, close Catalan, knight to f3, he castles, queen d3. This is something new. Here I have seen players have played many different alternatives, for example castling, then b3, knight c3, but queen d3 is something which shows that he is coming with something interesting preparation. But of course, like, Caruana is one who has played world championship match also, and he's always well prepared. He goes for the c5. He says like, I'm going to go for the center, nothing more than that. Castle, he captures, c captures d4, knight captures d4, knight c6, going for the exchanges, c captures d5, knight captures d5, queen captures d5, knight d5. By playing all these moves, the position has been symmetrical, you can say. The pawn structure is symmetrical, and if he wants to ruin the pawn structure, maybe bishop into d5 is alternative. But even in that case, your king will be a little bit exposed. That's why maybe he did not go for that thing. He plays bishop f6, attacking the queen. Queen moves to g4 square, and now he plays bishop d7. Well, the pawn on d5 is not hanging, means the piece is not hanging, because even if after this capture, the bishop will be capturing the queen on g4 square. So white is yet to develop the pieces. So he develops the piece with knight d2, queen e7, going away from all the action in the center of the board, because rook was threatening some of the things on that side, or you can say on the d file. He plays knight to f3, rook a c8 was played, e4. The knight is under attack. Knight needs to move in this position, but as I said earlier, the bishop on d7 is putting some pressure on this diagonal. So he takes care of that thing. He plays e5. See, in this position, you can move the knight, but if you move the knight, that will be a big blunder, okay? Let's suppose you play knight b6 in this position, and then suddenly you will see that this bishop on f6 is lost. After e5, the game is just lost, because the bishop on f6 doesn't have any kind of square to move around. So that's why he plays e5, attacking the queen on g4 square, and queen needs to move. So he plays queen h5, and now in this position he plays knight b4, bishop g5, trying to exchange the pieces. It's like, okay, no problem, exchange it, no issues. The queen h7 checkmate is threatened, so he plays h6, attacking the knight. Knight goes behind with knight f3, and now he plays knight c6. The idea is to come on this d4 square, and also the pawn on e5 is protected because it was being attacked by two pieces from the white side. Here in this position, I don't know exactly what happened to Alireza. He decided to play a move which completely blew my mind. He played in this position rook captures d7. I mean, why? Like, okay, you can play that thing, queen captures d7, and then his idea was to play bishop h3. The point is, like, if you move your queen somewhere, let's suppose you move your queen to d6 square, then bishop captures d7, rook c8, means bishop captures c8, rook captures c8, and maybe you can hold on to the position with moves like rook e1, and the game will go on. But he missed one important move from Caruana. Caruana is a sharp player, tactical player. Alireza is so young, he is also good at tactics, but he missed the tactic in the position. Okay, the tactic was the move f5. Yes, this is the move, guys. The point is, if bishop into f5 is played, like you can say, like, still this is under attack, what on earth you are going to do? But the point is, you can play queen e8 move. This is the point of the move. And now the queen on h5 is hanging. You cannot really do anything. We cannot capture the rook on c8 square, and if you capture the queen, this rook will capture here, and white is action down for no reason. And another thing is also there, g6 followed by bishop g4 h5 means the knight on f3 will be hanging. So this is not so comfortable position for white. He might be losing. So here in this position, he played e captures f5. Maybe bishop into f5 was still a good alternative, but he captures e captures f5, and then Caruana managed to find all the good moves in the position, and then he just got the point. You can say the youngest 2800 in the world was not able to handle the pressure of the world championship challenger. They continued with rook e8 move. Of course, you need to go away from the diagonal. He played knight h4, e4, and then rook to d1. He plays queen f7, trying to go for the queen exchanges. He said, no, I'm not going to exchange. But he said, like, if you are not going to exchange, I'm going to capture one pawn after another. The more the pawn black will be capturing, more it will be difficult for white to play in the game. He played knight g6, attacking the rook on f8, rook f7, trying to just hold on to the 7th rank, you can say, and then knight f4. Okay, knight might be coming to e6 square, but he said, like, no issues, you can come there, no problem. I'll play queen to b3. Bishop g4 was played in this situation, and now he plays e3. This was the point of queen b3. He wants to exchange the pawn on e4 square and undermine the king here, because if the king is exposed, then it will be good for him. He plays king g2, a very logical move, because there is no check now, and you cannot really capture the pawn because the rook on e8 will be hanging. He says, like, okay, no issues, hold on to that position. I'm going to play rook d8, going to exchange the pieces. More exchanges, more will be beneficial for black. He plays f into e3. It seems like, okay, he has got the pawn, but the position is not so cool, because rook c7, the rook is coming on c2 square. The queen as well as the king are in the same line, and the king is too much exposed. He plays king h3. Here knight f7, this check is also coming. The idea is to play rook c2. If the queen moves somewhere, knight g5 check, king h4, and then rook captures h2. I don't really like white's position. He's going to go down now. Bishop f3 was played, rook c2. The queen is under attack. Queen goes to d1 square, knight g5 check, as I mentioned earlier. Well, by playing this thing, he has vacated this square. King h4 means rook into h2 will come with a check, but he plays king g4. No problem. He says knight f3. Still, I'm going to capture as many pieces as possible. The pawn on b2 is also hanging. He tries last few things. He gives check, king h7, and now king captures f3. As I said earlier, the pawn on b2 is hanging, and this is just a winning position. The pawn is just going to roll down on the board. Queen e8. Last try to give some perpetual checks, but he says, like, no perpetual checks. I'm not going to give you any chance. Queen f6 was played. He tried e4, and he captures yet another pawn in the position. Queen d7. The b7 pawn is under attack, but he says, like, queen c3 check, king g4. He plays queen to d2. His idea is quite clear that he wants to just checkmate this king. Okay, you can capture queen into b7 in this situation, which is a possibility, but after that queen d1 check will come, and the king is not having any squares to move around. Knight e2, queen e2, and okay, that game is over. He plays queen a4, and then he just resigned, because in this position to win, I hope that you will be able to find the move, that is h5 check. The king is not having that many squares. King g5 is one of the moves in this position, but then queen d8 check, pawn will be pushed, and this is a checkmate. And if knight captures on h5 square, of course you can give queen e2 check, followed by the knight on h5 will be hanging. So guys, that's all the summary, or you can say the recap of the round 6 of the FIDE Candidates tournament. I hope that you enjoyed the game analysis. I'll be coming back with some more recaps of this FIDE Candidates. We'll be analyzing some of the games. I have analyzed some games in past also. Do check out the channel, guys. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends so that they will also enjoy. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye bye.